Welcome to GlideChat, where we give you the rundown of all things ServiceNow. Let's talk about the now, right now.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of GlideChat. I'm Karl, VP of Solution Alliances at GlideFast Consulting, and today I have a special guest, Mr. Paul Lyons, VP of Alliances and Channels at Sakon. Paul, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on, Brett.
Absolutely. We'll just get right into it. In this partner spotlight for the month of June, we've decided to go with Sakon and for us to get to know you a little bit better. So tell me, what is Sakon? What do you guys do?
Yeah, so Sakon essentially manages all of a large enterprise's telecommunications. So everything from fixed line to mobile assets, specifically carrier assets, carrier data. And that's really what we do. We manage that on behalf of the enterprise. We allow them to track their mobile assets, in most cases in ServiceNow. We also have a standalone platform that operates independently as well. But essentially, that's what we do. We manage lifecycle of mobile assets in all of an enterprise's telecom infrastructure.
That's great. And I think that's a big need in the industry right now, especially as people are looking to manage their mobility assets and while people are looking to consolidate and control costs. So I think it's a pretty valuable thing of what you're doing. Sakon, that's an interesting name. Can you give us a little bit behind the scenes of why you're called Sakon and what that actually means?
Every now and then I get a question about that. I can first tell you it's not, a Japanese anime, as some people have thought. What it is actually is originally the founders of the company were trying to derive a name for it. We started out doing a lot of cost optimization for carriers and that sort of work. So it was savings and convenience. So savings and convenience, Sakon, but that wording sounded boring, like SA and then CON. So they made it SAKON, which sounds a lot more mysterious and interesting.
Absolutely.
That was the name.
Definitely are a little more mysterious. So you mentioned the telco side of things. That's what you're doing. Why are you doing this? What problem did you see in the market, or did your organization see in the market that they're solving for? What was happening out there where you felt the need to have this organization?
Yeah, so it's a great question, Brett. So really what we're solving is the life cycle of mobile devices and really the life cycle of telecommunications services for an enterprise. What we found is a lot of folks struggle to manage not only the asset that they have, whether that's a mobile phone, a tablet, some kind of rugged device, but all of the carrier data that sits behind it. So carrier data would be things like, when is that device eligible for an upgrade? Does that device have an international plan? Does it need an international plan? Who has that device? How do you order that device? Where does it come from? Is that device insured? So things of that nature, when you really look at the life cycle of mobile devices, Brett, it's actually pretty complicated. There are a lot of moving parts in the background, and it's been something that literally every large enterprise struggles with. We've been around since roughly 2007, 2008, like I said, just on our own SaaS platform. And what we found is that more and more customers, have ServiceNow. They love the Sakon device platform. But what we kept hearing from the field was we want to have all of the data and all of the information you all present to us in ServiceNow. So that's why we developed our Scoped app that now sits on the ServiceNow store.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to say, with GlideFast, we're sole source ServiceNow. So I was going to dig into the ServiceNow piece a little bit on the Sakon side. So that's great. So would you almost describe yourself as almost a middleware where you're integrating between the telco providers and ServiceNow? Where do you fit in there?
That's exactly right. So we sit in between all of the carriers of ours and anyone that really has any part in either the procurement or the management of carrier, so I'll call it carrier services and mobile devices. So we sit in between that in the ServiceNow instance. We take all that information, all that carrier data that's so difficult to come by, and we render that back into ServiceNow. This allows various workflows to come off of that. It can have hooks into HRSD. It can have hooks into asset management and hardware asset management. So it's really dependent on how the end customer wants to see that data move through the workflow. But very compelling, very unique in the industry, and the feedback that we've had is great. In fact, ServiceNow also uses Sakon internally, so they're a very large customer of ours, which is great. I think we do roughly 22,000 mobile devices for them, and think 11 or 12 countries. So definitely exciting.
So you're not only built on now with an app, but you integrate, and ServiceNow themselves is using Sakon.
That's
Did I hear all
correct.
that right?
That's correct.
Oh, that's great. That's awesome for you guys and for ServiceNow to make all the workflow optimization and streaming, fluid and painless at the end of the day. That's great.
For sure.
I want to shift gears over a little bit over to industry. So this month in June at GlideFast, we're focusing on public sector. What we do in public sector, the customers we help from the federal, the state and local SLED teams. What is Sakon doing in the public sector space? Can you talk a little bit about, you don't have to mention names, but just some of your customers and what problems you're solving?
Today, we've got a large state in the Pacific Northwest that leverages a lot of our what we call like cost allocation and chargeback features. As you know, many of the state and local agencies have the sub agencies that sit below, and many of them really like to divvy up those costs and chargebacks. So in the world of carrier data and telecommunications services, you can imagine between mobile devices, telecommunications invoices, and things of that nature, they all have to be allocated depending on which type of sub agency is paying for what. So that's a big part of what we do in the space. I can tell you that with ServiceNow getting more and more state, local, and federal customers, it's definitely something that we have our eye on today. So you'll be seeing more and more of Sakon, in that space. And I think the problem that it solves is very similar, where a lot of these states have what I'll call sort of state-issued devices, phones, rugged devices, scanners. Think everything from train, rail, and road services to field services to any type of health and human services. People are typically equipped with some type of mobile device. And really our play is to manage, again, those mobile devices, preferably inside of ServiceNow if the state and local entity is using ServiceNow today. And then we partner with folks like GlideFast to do all the integration work, to do the workflows, all the associated ServiceNow work that inevitably, comes as part of implementing the Sakon scoped app. So yeah, it's a huge greenfield opportunity for us. We see a ton of upside. In fact, if you look at ServiceNow today, my understanding is that their federal business is, I think, the fastest growing dollar for dollar business that's out there. So we fully intend to sort of lock arms in that way.
That's great. Yeah, it's great that you're leaning in and you span all the different industries. Again, we touched on the public sector side a little bit. What other customers are you helping? What are some of the really impactful things that you're doing out there?
Yeah, so we're doing a lot in healthcare. So in fact, we did a joint opportunity, if you will, with a company called Amedisys. Amedisys does a lot of home health and home health care, traveling nurses, and that's really their business model. Literally tens of thousands of nurses in the field all day that have devices. So essentially what happens today is Sakon provides all of the mobile asset management for those devices, who has those devices, status of those devices, and really it helps them with productivity. So their whole model really, I'd say it's prefaced in the fact of how quickly can they get a traveling nurse or someone that's in the field up and productive. Like literally they're tracking it down to hours and minutes. So it was a great match between, Sakon, GlideFast, of course, doing all the ServiceNow integration work, and the end customer, Amedisys. It's just a textbook use case in healthcare where you've got, I guess, what I would call frontline workers that are super dependent on some kind of a mobile device or tablet, capturing patient data, logging everything that they have to due to HIPAA compliance and things of that nature. So it's really a fantastic offering. In fact, we're really focusing on replicating that, Brett, with GlideFast. And perhaps either doing an offering around the space, but healthcare for Sakon, and I know for GlideFast, is definitely probably our number one or number two kind of vertical market is healthcare. So that Amedisys win was a great kind of three-part story between GlideFast, Sakon, and ServiceNow.
Yeah, and I think we actually have we have a webinar out there that people can go ahead and watch. Where we dive deeper into that story between ServiceNow and GlideFast and Amedisys. So
we do. It's coming up on the 27th, I believe.
Yeah, definitely something for people to check out and watch and get something out of it. So that's great. What else are we doing? I know, Paul, we've been working together for almost a year at this point. What are some other areas that you've seen GlideFast lean in and help Sakon and work in the ServiceNow space?
Yeah, so I think it's great. I know that you guys are getting ready to launch what's called Mobility Max. And essentially that's a layer that you've built on top of our ServiceNow Scoped app that really puts your brand and how GlideFast, does the workflow automation on the back end. So really excited to see Mobility Max, which is going to be a full solution, built with Sakon, if you will, on ServiceNow. And I can tell you that, someone that worked for ServiceNow for, almost 9 years, the solution build is super important because I think for one, it really speaks to specific personas within the enterprise. Two, it gives you a very defined offering where, quite frankly, I think you're able to box out competition having a solution that you've built, with Sakon on ServiceNow. And again, you go after those vertical markets. I think the Mobility Max solution, you can have different flavors of that solution, whether it's for healthcare or finance, or it's for, telco, media, technology, et cetera. I think it's great because that just gives you the construct, if you will, and sort of the roadmap that you can tweak, based on the industries that you're going after. So really excited for Mobility Max and when that launches.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's gonna be great. We'll make a big splash with it as soon as we're ready to go to market. So it's been great working with your team and getting that across the line. So really
yeah, it's exciting. It's exciting. The other thing I will note too, for those watching, you'll hear a lot about ServiceNow in terms of what they're doing with telco. I'm going to put this in quotes, telco and telco order management and that sort of thing. And I'd say for folks at home that are sort of wondering, what are the differences between what ServiceNow is doing and what Sakon is doing? ServiceNow is doing a lot of their work around the carrier themselves. So order management for carriers, for service providers, things of that nature. So we've basically taken a similar construct, but we're doing that for the enterprise, for the end customer enterprise, sort of non-telco. Now, that's not to say that the telcos themselves, AT&T, Verizon, and others can leverage what Sakon is doing. I just point that out to it's actually a very complementary thing where we see those two roads, in some cases actually merge, Brett, where we've got order management happening with CSM. You've got what Sakon is doing, with mobility management, and essentially we see those roads coming together in a few accounts. I know you and I have worked on some last winter. So very interesting market. We're super excited. I think we're just getting going as well.
Absolutely. So Paul, before we wrap, what didn't I ask? What do you want to tell everybody about Sakon that they might not be aware of, other than the uniqueness of the name?
I'd say the only thing is what's next for Sakon. And I can tell you that our sort of Gen 2 offering will be releasing late this year, early next year. And that's going to really manage all of the fixed line. So network connectivity, fixed line telecommunications connectivity. It's a big deal in the industry. We've really sort of tackled the mobile management, if you will, part of that riddle. But now we'll be offering a second scoped app that's going to manage network infrastructure, network circuits, fixed line infrastructure, which every enterprise has. It's great. It's horizontal. Everyone has it. Same type of problem around visibility, inventory. What do we have? What are we using? What are we paying? So all of that will launch. I'm going to call it early Q1 of next year. So super excited about that.
That's fantastic. Well, Paul, thank you for your time today. I really appreciate it. It was great talking to you and getting to know Sakon a little bit better. And until next time, thank you.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks, Brett.
Do you have a topic in mind that you'd like to discuss? Reach out to us at glidefast.com and subscribe to our podcast for new episodes. Thanks for listening.